So, most people don't actually know what dying looks like until they're standing right in front of it. And by then, it's too late sometimes to ask the questions that matter. So, here we're going to talk about it before that moment comes. We're going to stay with what's real and we aren't going to look away. Today, we're going there. So, welcome to the deep dive into death. I'm Malia. You can find me at findingrealm.com as I work on my website and on YouTube, X, and Substack. So let's begin. So my last few videos, I've been talking about a death that I was currently walking beside and writing about those experiences and sharing them here from a doula's perspective, not as theory and not as ideology, but just as my own lived experience. And for me, home deaths are what I know. Working gently with spirituality, which looks differently for everyone, holding space, coaching through death, listening to the body, and trusting the rhythm. Now, with my mother in law, we did go to a hospice. She had unwavering faith in the medical system, and for her, that mattered. But for our family, going to hospice every day added another layer of exhaustion. The travel, the transitions, the emotional shift of walking into a building that carried its own atmosphere. Nothing against the people who work there, many are deeply compassionate. But the energy is different. It's sterilized, it's structured, it's contained. And there's comfort in instant help when it's needed. And that matters. But sometimes suffering doesn't come from the lack of medication or intervention. It comes from not being able to tend to your emotions freely. From not being able to cry without an audience, from not being able to look out your own window, and from not sleeping in your own home. So my stepdad was in the hospital for a month and a half while they tried to figure out what was going wrong. Even though I was new of being a death doula at that time, I knew he was dying. It was obvious. 2 weeks had passed before they had realized that he even had a bladder infection. A doctor came to speak with him in the hospital about the infection and his death. The waiting time was no different if he were there or at home. Meanwhile, his body was clearly preparing to close, and he hated being there. Even in hospice and palliative care, when you often do have a private room, there's still an energy that's not yours. Machines, footsteps, announcements, the subtle hum of other people's pain and suffering, and to be honest, just those fluorescent lights. He wanted to be home. And when he finally received the unspoken words and the quiet acknowledgement that he was dying, we had brought him there, home. So the shift was immediate. His shoulders had softened, his breathing steadied, and his agitation dissolved a lot more. He was relaxed, at peace, comforted by his own walls, his own lights, and his own familiar sounds. And there's something about being on your own space that medicine cannot replicate. That memory sits with me now as I had cared for my previous client. So when she had what we would call our real first death drama moment, and we had to surrender in her way, looking up at the universe, speaking softly, and then all of a sudden shift, a knock at the door, and the nurse had arrived. So we explained the situation, and within 2 hours, our problem was solved. She slept through the night, she had no more pain, and her agitation was gone. And the nurse said something that stayed with me. And of all the deaths she'd seen, there had been so many firsts in this home. She had never seen a doula before, and she had never seen someone coach her through the discomfort the way that I did. I don't know if you remember, but in the previous episode, we had the numbers 25, 36, 9, 3, 3. And she had never seen how I temporarily stabilized the situation until help arrived, and how we had remained calm through it all. It was messy, just so you know. We'll get into those things in another show. And yes, there was a bed waiting in hospice, and this one nurse, whenever she could, would gently remind us of that. But my client's wishes were clear. She wanted to die at home. And if we can't solve the problem at home, then we'll take the help. But so far, we were able to keep solving them, and she was at peace. She gets to lay in her favorite room. She watches her birds, her squirrels. She had these huge windows, nature all around her, and she didn't miss an episode of her favorite show, Young and the Restless. At the end of life, it's these small, simple things that become someone's entire world. And sometimes those small, simple things are more than enough. I had once asked a man nearing the end what matters most right now, and he didn't hesitate. He said, honestly, being able to watch the sunset or just nature around me. That was it. It was no longer about the people, he added gently. They mean well, but they bring me food and ask how I'm doing. He was interested in the beauty of Earth, the sky shifting, trees moving, lights changing across the floor. When people ask me, are you tired? Death must be exhausted. My answer is usually no, because we set up shop in the home. Those of us who are there can cook in the kitchen. We can step outside. We can watch a show. We can do something creative, just sit there and breathe. We don't have to pay for parking. We don't listen to the hospital hallways. We don't have to rush to move the car before the parking meter expires. We don't eat every meal out of a vending machine. We sleep in real beds, and we are in a house that's filled with history, not in a room where many others have passed before. So when my husband's dad was dying and my stepdad was in the hospital, I was homeschooling my youngest, which I still am, because I like outside the system. I like freedom. So he got to stay with us. So learning math at the kitchen table and reading and watching what it means to care for someone. He was learning how to love and how to show up. In the home, we can create something that might feel a little more like the old days: community, family. Life continues around the dying person. The kettle still boils, the birds still come to the feeder, and the laundry still turns. There's comfort in that. It brought my previous client happiness because daily life still existed around her. She had a little entertainment, familiarity, and choice. She is not sitting and just watching a clock, although she was bedbound for 2 months. But she wasn't waiting for visitor hour to end, not calculating parking time, or hoping that somebody could find a spot. So when my stepdad was in the hospital, I had to drive 45 minutes every day for a month and a half before he came home. Even when he went home, I still had to drive 45 minutes every day, but I didn't have the same stresses. Gas was expensive, and my car was barely working. And my father-in-law was actually also dying at home, his home, the same time. So I remember saying to him, half joking, but I was desperate, you have to wait till my stepdad dies because I can only do one of you at a time. And he did. So life and death stack themselves in a way that force clarity. I said to him, I could only be in one room at a time and hold one of your hands at a time. And so this is why being at home had mattered for us. Not because hospice and palliative care are wrong. In fact, they're deeply needed, and I fully support those systems. But it's because home deaths allow us to tend not only to the body, but to the whole ecosystem of living. And that ecosystem is what kind of makes death feel a little less heavy. It eases the strain on the system, creating space for those who truly need to be there. And it adds peace and freedom for those who don't. So if you're walking alongside someone in this, you're not alone. And if this has brought something up in you, don't rush past it. Stay with it, even just for a moment, because this is what it means to be human and being with death just exactly the way it is. So this is the deep dive into death, and we'll just keep having these conversations. I'm Aaliyah. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Once again, you can find me here at YouTube, X, and Substack, and findingrealm.com. Thank you very much.